Hello, and welcome back to the Modeling Success in Action podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, and today I am joined by just the wonderful, kind, and patient Marie-Pier Gilbert. She is a somatic psychotherapist, sexologist, and guide into embodied relating. Her work lives at the intersection of attachment, vulnerability, sensual intelligence, wholeness in those quiet places where we learn to come back to ourselves. She is also the author of the upcoming book, The Paradox of Womanhood, an exploration of desire, devotion, and the courage it takes to live fully and freely. Oh, I love that. I'm so glad that's your upcoming book because that's exactly what I want to talk about. I love it. Welcome to the
Oh,
show.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Oh man.
Oh.
Yeah, those of you who are listening are not going to get the benefit of it, but this is probably like the third or the fourth time I just tried that intro. So when I say patient, I really mean it. She's been very gracious with me as I stumble through her bio. We finally nailed it though. I got it. Here we are. So welcome. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. And before we started, she said, bring your curiosity and we'll have an authentic conversation. And so that's exactly it. I am going to bring my curiosity. And so I really want to start with, how did you end up where you are doing this work?
It's such a beautiful question. And you know what? I think it's always been like that. When I was a kid, I could not play with my peers. I wasn't interested. Not that they were boring. I was just not as interested. What I liked, and that started when I was probably 7 years old. I liked sitting beside my parents and not to learn what they were saying, to observe, to witness. I was so curious to see other couples coming to my house and seeing how my parents were interacting together and how other people were interacting. And I remember sitting beside them, I was like, I so wonder what that's like between them. And I could not really see them exchanging touch or affection. So all of that started to pick up my curiosity. And it was the same. I remember a field trip and the teacher didn't want us to be close to them. So I was sitting by myself, not far away, and I was really paying attention to every adult conversation. And I was so curious, especially my female teachers, how they were carrying themselves outside of the classroom. So I didn't have language for it, but my curiosity about what's make us human and connect with one another always been there. And today I just make it a living out of it.
Yeah.
Like I just bring that to enrich the quality of bond that we already have.
Yeah. So you were like this little anthropologist, just like witnessing humans and getting curious about them. So, okay. So I'm curious in those early days, like what did you learn? Like, what did you see about these relationships? If you weren't seeing like the physical stuff, were you curious about where that was, what was happening? Like, what did you learn from this witnessing?
I was learning the vibe.
Mm.
And today I see clearly that I didn't have the vocabs, but I was listening inside of them. And I was so curious to which person was bringing more sense of safety for me and which person I knew that I would never ask the question. And that vibe piqued my curiosity. And today I know what it meant. It's really attachment science would describe it in one way. Spirituality would describe it on another way, but it still is this energy that we exchange either lead us in a patterns of dysregulation or it will lead us in a pattern of resonance.
Mm-hmm.
Either or, we are in connection with one another, that we
Yeah.
want it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring this same reality in love relationship, it's phenomenal. It can bring people closer or it can keep two partners more mechanical to one another.
Mm-hmm.
None of them is wrong. It's just a matter of how much we embody ourselves and how much we hide behind our sense of comfort or need of predictability or thoughts or what we had learned as conditioning of what we should do and what we should not do. So depending on how much those layers can be ticked, if I can use that word,
Mm-hmm.
harder it will be to be in relational resonance, in emotional intimacy, and therefore our sexuality will reflect it at the core of it.
Mhm. So it really is like about the mood, the vibe, the energy of it all rather than like some structure or rules or, even preconceived notions. So when we're
Yeah.
talking about these like the self-consciousness, right? The
Mhm.
because really that self-consciousness is the rules, the conditioning that you mentioned, like all of those things that we believe is supposed to be happening and then we're judging ourselves based on that. So, what I see a lot of times is, women who are like women, right? These are not girls, they're not teenagers, they're like fully grown adult women who
Mhm.
are out in the world and they're acting like, they need to follow the rules because, they are gonna get scolded like a little kid or a teenager, right? Like they're imagining almost like their parents are still in charge of them, kind of, right? And then that can get kind of messy in the sexuality way because if you're imagining that you're somebody's daughter, then how can you be this, you know, embodied, woman who's owning herself? So what has that been like, in your experience witnessing clients for yourself? Like what has that been like for you to see, to get curious about?
It's such a beautiful question. You're really speaking about the journey of differentiation and how much the map that shaped us at the early childhood still does influence us as an adult. So yeah, you're right, because the first intimate relationship happened with our parents. At first is dependency and the way they will help us grow and differentiate as receiving this core love, unconditional assistance that no matter what you do, you're extraordinary. This will create a secure bond within yourself. And when you go and later on, the same bond that was dependent to your parents become an independent bond with your future lover. So if the differentiation never happened as developing and seeing how you are yourself and influence with others, we develop those patterns. We develop the patterns of pleasing to receive acceptance. We develop the patterns of chasing to earn love. We develop the patterns of staying small to not disturb the bond. So we maintain a sense of harmony. Those patterns, if we don't sit with them and understand how they give us service until they stop, we're going to carry them in our adult love relationship. So what the example you're telling me, it's that it here gender doesn't matter, that it's woman or men, we will carry those, what I named earlier, some sort of barrier preventing us to feel secure in intimacy. Because intimacy is the most vulnerable place. If you've learned that earning love is the way to go to be accepted or received in the feedback, you cannot be vulnerable. Because when you're vulnerable, you're breaking, it's counterintuitive. You're breaking the law that make you feel safe and engaged socially for how many years? So the first step, it's looking about what do we bring in the relationship? What do we carry? And when we can use the bond with our lover, no matter the gender, it's true for male and female and everyone in between. When we can use the bond as the safety place to land, we start to discovering the richness of intimacy. If we cannot do that, we apply the concept of sexuality or intimacy that we often expose from everywhere in the world, porn, movie, TV, commercial, whatever. We bring that and we adopt that as our sexual script.
Mhm.
This is not us. This is a borrowed conditioning script that prevent us to tap in who we are in our fullness.
So how like the first step is reflecting in on yourself and going, what am I bringing? Like, what am I bringing as in all my old patterns, my old conditioning, and how were they serving me before? Right. I love that you mentioned like they have a positive intention. They give you something to a point. And then all of a sudden you're going, well, it was giving me what I wanted, but now the consequence of that thing has become so large that, it's kind of like, the side effects are worse than like the disease, right? So how do we move into the place of being able to be vulnerable? If we want to have true intimacy, how do you move into that place? How did you discover that? Was that always something that you were able to do?
It's always inside of you. The question is, will you tap within to awaken it? Or are we going to maintain the pattern that prevent us to go inside? It's very strong. Those patterns have been shaped by how we understood the word. And
Mhm.
it's beautiful itself. It's really it's showing you that all the and what you internalize or what you understood by social interaction shaped the map that you repeated all your life. So the task that we're talking about of tapping in our embodiment, of going inwards, reflect what I always say. There's no healing by a way out. There's no way out because we're going to keep turning externally to fill up what we cannot do internally. There's only a way through. And the first step is to start to be friends with our own fears. There is no way out of this. We develop those patterns not to become manipulative, not to be egocentric, not to be like taking advantage of others. No, no one wants to do that. We just engage in what feels right based on the map that we built since we are early childhood.
Mhm.
So the first step is to see how we influence, see the patterns around us, and look at the fears that if we don't engage in those behaviors, if we don't step away when we are heightened, if we don't withdraw from vulnerability, what that evokes inside of you. If we don't do that pattern, what happens? So the first step is to be willing to recognize that we all carry patterns, and those patterns too often make us very successful in every sphere of our life, except our marriage, except our love relationship, except our desire to be intimate.
Mhm.
And it takes a time before we realize it. We overextend in relationship. We overanalyze relationship. There's so much that we do before we can feel like it's enough. And often it happens when you hit the sexuality.
Mhm.
Women will lose desire or get frustrated about the way their men initiate. Men will be frustrated that they always have to initiate, otherwise nothing is happening. And there is so much that we carry, and often it explodes when sexuality start to feel less fluid.
Mhm. It's interesting too because, the way that you are in your, like, work life, right? If you're highly analytical, right? And maybe that's an important part of your job. When you bring that
Mhm.
into your relationship, if you're analyzing, picking apart, nitpicking, judging yourself and your partner, that's not sexy, right? Like, really, it's gonna erode that connection between the two of you, right? Because all of a sudden you're not looking at it from that place of love and acceptance. It's like almost like you're on opposite sides.
And I love that you're putting it in love and acceptance, because love and acceptance cannot be created, cannot be an attempt of what we do.
Mhm.
We feel it, we express it. It's a state,
Mhm.
but it's not something that we can mentally create. It will feel fake.
Mhm.
If a partner, no matter the gender, okay, in that occasion, we need to do the stereotype male female. But if the male brings flowers with the intent of romance for having sex, when you bring flowers, the woman will receive it and know what it means even before she receive it. Even before she will look in the eyes and say thank you and enjoy it, she will know where her partner is coming from there. That just stop the ability to connect around a gesture. So
Mhm.
she won't receive all the time that the male took, like, I'm gonna buy flowers, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna do this, and he is in front of the flower pot and he tried to see which one matched his woman, and all of that investment will be bypassed. So if at the moment she receives it and she knows that he does that because he wants sex with me tonight, we are missing so much depth and so much attention. What's gonna happen for him? He
Mhm.
won't be seen in his wholeness.
So, what how do you have it so that people who maybe have been stuck in that pattern, right? Maybe that was the relational pattern for a while, right? And he was like, "Hey, but it's working," and it felt like it was a good thing on his end, right? And maybe she was doing things like maybe she was cooking him meals or something for the same reason, right? Like, how do you then, as the person on the receiving end, shift your frame around it, because you know what? Maybe even if that is the intention, it's still because he's chosen you and he wants to be connected up with you. And those are only his patterns that he's running. And it's not necessarily a nefarious thing. So, how does she give him the benefit of the doubt, even when the vibes are off?
And it's beautiful the way you reframe it here, Jessica, because it brings us to the point of what we were speaking earlier.
Yeah.
Can she start sitting with the triggers that gets inside of her, preventing her to fully embrace her partner intention? That is her part. Can he, when he give the flower, tap in all the generosity in terms of time in his heart and give the flower, holding the smile, gazing at her? So it's not about the transactional exchange. It's about the moment.
Mhm.
Can we draw? There is so much intimacy in this exchange. But if I'm doing the dishes and I don't welcome him and he drop it on the table, we just miss this entire opportunity to slow down, turn towards each other and see our depth. But that depth is vulnerability, and we're not always comfortable with vulnerability.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, we're not comfortable with it, I find, because we are in judgment of ourselves, right? And it is that feeling of being witnessed that feels so terrifying, because you're like, if this person really, really sees me, they're going to find out I'm awful, right? Or whatever we think about ourselves, right? So, you know, it, I guess we're coming back to that, fully just knowing yourself and accepting yourself as that first bit. So,
Well, I'm going to slow you
yeah,
down. Before we talk about acceptance,
yeah.
acceptance is still in the mind. You
Mm,
just name it. You just feel it as you brought it back. It's like, oh yeah, but like in vulnerability, we are afraid, and what is going to think of me?
mhm,
That's the fear response I was speaking earlier. That's
mhm,
the place inside that we want to be able to land within. It's like, I'm so afraid on how I'm going to be seen. So I wear this mask, or I'm going to shortcut intimacy in this exchange of flowers, or I'm going to stay on task, or I'm going to think. Those are very subtle ways that we cope to not feel too much,
mhm,
to not feel our true feelings. But in that vulnerability lies the capacity for a partner to engage. When we tap in this vulnerability, when we are all shy and we allow the other person to show that, to see that we are shy and I don't know what to do with those flowers and I'm happy and I don't know how to receive them. All of the sudden we let them in. All of the sudden he sees a response like, I influence you. I created something in you. And that is rewarding. But
mhm,
if we shut it down, how do we embrace our partner making a move towards us? So what you're bringing, sitting closer to our fears, is actually the entry door. If we
mhm,
go, we have to accept it. We're just back in our mind. We're not present in the moment when you arise. That is the entry door. When I welcome couples, and especially couples when there is a common therapy for infidelity, the first step, it's I'm working with the shame of the partner who had infidelity, who engaged in infidelity. And it is such a tricky place to go, but that shame is the entry door. It's an uncomfortable feeling. I'm with you. But when we are ashamed, it's because we care.
mhm.
If we don't care,
There's no
we
shame.
there's
Yeah.
no shame. There's
Mhm.
nothing. It's like
Yeah.
I move on. But someone who is deeply ashamed will have tons of reactive behaviors. When we go underneath and we can take those reactive behavior in their context and come to the core of the experience, and it's a mix of shame and helplessness,
Mhm,
we start to feel vulnerability.
mhm,
And that resonates for the other partner. Because at the moment where she start to see her partner full in shame, or he see her in full shame, we start to stop advocating, and we know that what we're saying lands. It
mhm,
resonates. So shame will feel as the primary emotion that we want to skip. It's actually the entry door to reconnect.
mhm. Yeah, it's interesting working with shame and guilt. I'm always kind of going, it's telling you something's important, right? And you can get
Mm.
curious and go, hey, is this important still today? Is it important to me? Or is this an important thing that maybe somebody else told me was important? And I've always thought it was important because it came from outside of me. But as upon further, reflection, maybe not so important and we can let go. Right. But it's like
Mm.
if you're feeling shame, it's going, it's almost like I liken it to the fire alarm going off, right? You're in the building and there's an alarm sounding saying, hey, something's got to shift here, right? You got to pay attention. There's something that you're not, that there's a part of you in disagreement with it, right? Like it feels like
Mhm.
it's doing something that, like, it's breaking a rule for yourself, is something that you do care about, right? And so you're either wanting to change the value or change the behavior, right? At the end of the day, that's where we want to go. That's what shame is, like the invitation to go ahead and do, to start to move towards one of those things, right?
It's interesting. We can look at it from more as like the words that come to me, it's dealing with it as a protocol.
Mm,
But if we just slow down in what you're saying, it's fascinating as when we go inside of us, immediately is like, I need to do meaning out of it. I need to do something. Like there's so much. The mind, it's hard to keep quiet and aligned. And when the mind take over, we're not in our body, we're in flight and fight response.
mhm,
There is no way we can connect in flight and fight response. It's going to be a disconnect cycle of escalation.
mhm,
But when we just slow down and understand what do we carry that make us feel so ashamed this way, when we understand like the model we're living in, and we hide behind certain behavior or appearance or how we compensate, when we can slow down and go at the core, we start to have a complete different language.
mhm.
And I always say to my couples coming saying like, we want to learn to communicate better. Like, yeah, we can talk about nonviolence communication. It's
Yeah.
a start, but there is no grammatical way to express yourself if you're not speaking from a place of truth. And the truth is not a life principle that we apply. The truth is the momentum, the sensation, the experience that you're having. So learning to speak from what's alive inside of you, pull your partner and bring your partner in a place of curiosity.
Mhm.
So
So
we're no
making
longer
it,
negotiating.
yeah,
We are
experiential.
we
Yeah.
mutually engage and mutually understand one another rather than negotiating or falling into compromise.
Mhm.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful way. I'm so glad that you took the time to, you know, put that on the table and kind of paint that picture for us, because it's true, right? Like in theory, there's a lot of, I had somebody on here the other day who was like, you need to move through emotions. And I'm like, yeah, moving through emotions is like, in theory, great, right? Or like, yeah, getting curious about your own shames, in theory, great.
Yes.
But like, what does that actually look like in practice? Like, if you really slow yourself down
Right.
and you do the thing, if you do the experience of it, how does that play out? Like, how do you let yourself have that experience, right? Because it is, I think it's a practice, right? Like, you're not going to nail it on the first time. There's going to have to be layers unfolded and more curiosity and love for yourself the whole way through. Yeah.
And it's, if I just pinpoint everything you've been sharing here as more, it's all related to your experience and less about what we think and how we engage. Do
Mhm.
you notice
Yeah.
just the language you're using here? It's the invitation to come back to your core self. And
Hmm.
this is why I love relationships so much, because inside of us, so most of the time, it's very difficult to hold both, especially as women. Um, we often know how to feel, how to nurture, but we don't know how to lend. So we search externally as often this person that's going to know how to hold it steady, because we don't know how to land inside of us. So when we engage from that seeking sense of like capacity to land in someone else, of being seen in someone else, that security, that steadiness, when we seek that externally, we're already in a pattern,
Hmm.
because there is only a half of ourselves that engage with the other person. When we look at men, in general, and I really want to say in general, it's not, gender is secondary, but if we look at stereotype to understand this, Often men has the steadiness. When we say like they always think and they're like they will be anchored, but they don't always know how to feel. So if they need if they always steady, what the complaint we hear from women is like, there's nothing in this. Like, there's no romance possible, or is always like initiating sex from a jokes, like we're alone, the kids are in bed, are you ready to go for in the bedroom, or with a laugh? And what women are complaining is their challenge to bring motion in their steadiness. And when they bring that, they also bring only half of themselves in the relationship. On one part, if we don't recognize our half, right, it's going to create a pattern. But when we dive in our journey, and what I'm helping my male clients to do, it's to become comfortable with the discomfort. We use their steadiness as the container. We dive inside, and the fear that we explore is the fear of emotion, especially as a man, because if you are emotion, emotional, sorry, you lose credibility. So that's one layer of conditioning that when we can melt it, they turn towards their partner with such a softness. Their partners start to be so attractive to them because it feels safe. We're not in a compensation. They see their wholeness. It's very powerful. And it's the opposite often that I'm going to help women develop is this container. Because if not, what the society as deplore as anxiety is just this incapacity to land inside of you, leading to tons of thoughts, tons of fear, and it storms so much that you're completely ungrounded and out of sync. Yes, we can, the medical system will call it anxiety. In my work, I'm helping you to develop a container. So all of your emotional response has room to land. You catch your breath, you look at yourself. And rather than being in a self-judgment, we are in a process of self-compassion. So when we can do that before we engage with our partner, we become to engage from a place of wholeness. I carry myself with confidence. I have that. I know that I won't collapse. I don't need you. I want you. This is completely different interaction.
I don't need
How
you. I
that sounds
want
for
you.
you?
I love that's so beautiful. So, I mean, I can hardly imagine that there's, any more perfect way to like leave this conversation. But I do want to ask you if the people who are listening are going, yes, like finally, that sounds exactly like what's been happening. I've been in my head, not my body. I've been in my thoughts, not my experience. How would they start to model this for themselves? Where would be, you know, if they were to step into your world and try it on
Okay.
and feel it the way you feel it, where might they start? What might you point them towards?
The first thing I want to bring is nobody is broken. Nobody is broken. Our body work from a place of wisdom. So when there is too much, we numb out, not because we are broken, but because the body is intelligent.
It's
It
designed
won't give you, it's
that way.
designed, it won't give you more than what you can tolerate. And same for per individual with low desires. I don't call it low desire. I call it a muted desire. So we're not broken. And in that place, the first step, I'm going to invite people to not speak louder, but feel deeper. So slow down and just notice how much agitation you carry or numbness or like resistance. None of those are a symbolism of being broken. That's your body trying to speak, to capture your attention and bring you back into a level of equilibrium where you don't only live in your head, you live in alignment. So the key words here is don't speak louder, feel deeper.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Well, with that, I am going to say thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Thank you all for tuning in and have a wonderful day.